All right. Well, good morning. Thanks for joining me on this beautiful Thursday. Um, we're going to have some fun today. Um, those of you who've been in the real estate business for a minute, I've been in real estate now for going in my 20th year. We probably heard about farming before. So there's a little bit of a twist on this. We are going to kind of talk about the typical farming neighborhoods. So we're going to start off with the classic farming method. Um, I've had several coaching clients over the years have success at a high level with farming neighborhoods. That's why it's called $100,000 a year farming. One particular agent, actually just this past year, did $96,000 in gross income just from farming a neighborhood, right? So if it's done the right way and it's done consistently, it is one of many lead sources. We all know SOI, sphere of influence referrals, is the top contender in our lead pillars, but farming definitely can take care of that. But today we're going to talk about neighborhood farming, but we're also going to talk about social circles. Really, that's a farm, that's a targeted approach. And then we're also going to talk about social media, how we can be a lot more intentional. And again, also a targeted approach. So I will send you the recording. I will also send you the presentation. There's also some additional links that I'm going to go through today. I'll send all that to you in an email. So if you just want to grab a notebook, take some notes, that would be great. And we'll kind of kick this off. So if you don't know me, I always say this is my kind of my 30-second commercial about myself. My name is DeMaree. I am a father first. My daughter actually will be turning 20 in July, which is insane. I can't believe I have a 20-year-old almost in my world, and her name is Emma. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. So before real estate, I was always the kid, in high school and middle school, always trying to sell something. Start a business, start a lawn care business, start just doing anything I could to be self-employed. And then I had the opportunity to get into real estate, and it's just my love letter to be an entrepreneur through a realtor. And then I've been a coach. I'm going actually on my 10th year as a coach. We are a independent coaching and training company. We're called the Freedom Companies. We are in multiple brokerages, and different vendors hire us to do training. So if you're a vendor or a broker out there, we'd love to chat with you. We always say we like to complement the training that you're already doing. We know there's some amazing trainers and coaching people in the real estate space, but we love to complement them or maybe come from a slightly different angle or a fresh approach. So if you ever need any resources, reach out. Okay. All right. So I want to start with just the preface. First of all, I'm obsessed with this book. It's actually a few years old now, um, but it really ties into kind of the introduction of what is farming. So this book is called Tribes. Number one, it's a small book. I love reading, but I love that I can get through a book in about less than 2 hours. So if you want a quick read, if you're going on a trip, if you're going to the beach, this would definitely be a book I recommend. But it's not a real estate book, and yet it completely speaks to me as a real estate book. It talks about tribes or community of people. And so, kind of Cliff Notes version to spare us with the time is it's a shared interest and it's a shared means of communication. So, think of it from a religious standpoint or even a political standpoint or your family, right? Anything like that. So, tribes really is about how do you really build this network or community of people. One of the things that's interesting in the book, it also talks about that your community wants to contribute, right? So I think as real estate agents, when we're thinking about farming in general, it's like us giving them information, it's us giving them value. Well, in the book, it's really interesting. It talks about kind of the reciprocal of kind of getting it back in return, right? So think of it like, let's say you're going to a Thanksgiving dinner, right? You don't show up empty-handed. You generally show up with a side dish or dessert, right? So if you're really trying to build a community or a tribe, it's okay to ask for their help or do something nonprofit, maybe a fundraiser or a nonprofit drive, because them contributing actually anchors into the whole concept and the humanity of what a tribe is. Okay, so I want you to think about how can you interlace that or interconnect that to our discussion today. I wanted to kick off with that. Okay. So again, get this going. So we're going to talk about geographical farms. Like I said, this is the one. If you've been a realtor for 5 minutes, you've heard about this in the office. You probably have seen your broker or mentor mention this. We're going to talk about social farming, kind of how to be more strategic in networking, and then of course economic farming, talking about luxury and different markets and things like that. But no matter what the type of farm, it's a systematic, targeted group, right? So often I see on social media or see if I'm going to a networking group, agents sometimes kind of throw it on the wall and hope it'll stick. I can tell you as an agent early in my career, the first 2 years, I did the exact same thing until I realized I had to zone in and sometimes I had to do less to create more, right? So I had to use that target approach. So I have this bullseye on the screen. It's kind of like throwing a dartboard, you know, with your eyes open, you obviously want to target the center. But sometimes I feel like us as agents, we're going in blind. We just almost like we're blindfolded, and that dart has no direction and it doesn't have kind of this intentional purpose. So I want you to take, at the very least today, that farming is about that targeted approach. And it doesn't have to be just a postcard. If you don't think that farming a neighborhood is for you, that is fine. There's so many other ways to farm in our industry that's going to create that abundance for your business. Okay. All right. So let's first talk about neighborhood farming, just farming, building it as a system itself. I hear often when I onboard a new coaching client, they're like, oh, I've tried farming before, it doesn't work. And so we kind of dissect what went wrong or what the approach was. And so the first thing is people, agents often say, well, I'm going to farm the neighborhood I live in. Okay. Not a bad idea, but we need to get some data behind it to make sure it's worth your time and worth your money, right? I also say, hey, I'm just going to farm a couple streets, just because for budget purposes, I can't farm, 400 or 500 houses. I'm just going to do 25, 30 houses on this one street. Again, I understand and respect the perspective, but we'll show you in the data that sometimes farming your own neighborhood and sometimes farming those small 1 to 2 streets is a waste of time and energy and money. Okay. It just doesn't have the conversion rate that we need to make it a business decision to do so. Right. So I'm not going to go through all these questions, but we always need to ask ourselves, is farming the right time and the right financial commitment? Right. And so often I see people that farm digital, social, or neighborhood geo farming, you don't do it long enough, right? 3 months in, you're like, oh, I'm not getting anything. I'm just going to pull the plug. That's sometimes because the financial, you don't have the budget set up. So you have to kind of pull out of the farming because you don't have the revenue to keep going, which we'll talk about that a little bit. But oftentimes it's because you're not getting enough time to kind of go through the cycle, right? So if you're not committed to at least 8 to 12 months in farming, and regardless of the style, then farming might not be the lead source and lead lever for you because this is what I call the slow burn. It's kind of like the runway to the airplane. It's long, right? Now it's fruitful and it can generate a lot of consistent opportunities, but it does take time. Okay. So just want you to kind of work through that. So the first thing when we're going into actually neighborhood, deciding if we're going to actually farm a neighborhood, we always talk about a turn rate. You probably have already heard this before, but it's always good to refresh this because um, agents often forget this. They kind of like they want to be in a certain neighborhood, maybe because it's just a status or it's an income, like it's a price point thing, or it's because you live in that neighborhood. But people have to leave. People have to want to go to a different neighborhood, right? So they have to turn, right? So in our case, I'm going to show you a couple screenshots of how you can calculate the turn rate. I would recommend, and this is what I personally have done, I've got 3, 4 neighborhoods I'm thinking about farming, and I pull turn rates for all 4 of them, and I really start to make a calculated decision on what the best approach is based on the numbers, not based on my emotion of feeling that I want to be in there. It's based on the facts. Okay. So really turn rate is pretty simple. It's the number of houses sold in a year divided by how many people that live there. So the number of doors, right? So I personally, in my market, I use our matrix, our MLS system to pull a year's worth of data. And I also go into our tax service system. I use ours called Realist, and I divide those two numbers together, right? and 5% is the kind of the rate we're hitting. And that number, 5%, seems low, but it's hard to hit. Right now, I'm seeing a very common 3, 4, 5 at the very great highest. Why is that so hard to hit? You would probably know this. People are staying in their houses longer, right? So it used to be 5 years, used to be 7 years. Now it's 10 years, kind of creeping into 12 years. People are staying put. They're not flipping. They're not moving to another house, upgrade or downsizing more as often, right? We know it's because of affordability. We know because interest rates and all the things that are affecting our local markets. So finding that 5%, that sweet spot, is not the easiest thing to find. Okay. So I'm just going to show you visually how I do it in our market. You have a different MLS system. You have the same resources. The buttons might look slightly different, but the data is still you still have access to all of this, right? So I just go into my MLS search. I go into the solds and I pull up 365. So I change that default setting. And then I go into the subdivision section. So if you're not doing a subdivision, so if you're kind of doing just a geographical area, so maybe it doesn't have a section or a subdivision, you're going to have to use the map search instead. But you want to really zone in on what those units are, specifically for the area you're trying to do, right? So then you're going to go into the tax records. Again, you might have a variation of this tax record system. I make sure I'm in the right county. I always get people that text message me later. I'm like, it's not coming up right. Change the county. Make sure if you're in XYZ, or in this example, Chesterfield County, it follows suit. And then you're going to select the subdivision field. It's under my search, not the quick search. So again, those tabs sometimes throw people off. So in this example, I'm just selecting a popular neighborhood in our market. So Chesterfield County, Hampton Park. I'm going to select all the sections because of new construction, or as they've grown them, they usually do them in phases, right? So I'm going to select all the ones that I have there. This will give me a total population. So right now, the turn rate. I want to know how many doors, right? So 783 people live in this subdivision, okay? And so I'm literally going to take that information. So how many how many sold, and then I'm just going to divide it by how many people actually live in that neighborhood. So that's the turn rate, not too hard, but I want you to make sure you're doing that consistently rather than making a knee-jerk reaction. Final thing on this, and we'll get to some other fun stuff, is size of your farm does have an impact on the return, right? So generally the rule of thumb is for every 70 houses, one is going to be for sale, right? So when I see those folks that are only farming 100 to 150 houses, like in a neighborhood or like a street, it just isn't going to give you enough return on your investment, time and money, right? So if 70 houses are for every one gives you 70 houses gives you one, you're going to have a large enough farm. So an example, I just put roughly to sell 8 homes, you'll have to have 560 homes, right? So I gave the example at the beginning of this session about one of my clients generating $96,000 in gross income just from her particular lead source of farming. Her particular neighborhood is like 480 people, right? And it does have a decent turn rate because it's one of those transitional neighborhoods that they're not too small, they're not too large. Um, so a lot of the families are either upsizing or downsizing. And so she's in a great turn rate because of the price point, the square footage, and all that. So I think a lot of that is a factor. So if you're not having success currently in farming a neighborhood, go back to the numbers and see if those numbers are hitting properly and kind of work your way through. The last thing on this is we call it the guerrilla search. Make sure you know what your competition is, right? So in my MLS, I add an additional column on our MLS system, and I just want to see what the listing agent's name is. I don't want to actually filter it by the type of brokerage. Let's choose a general ABC brokerage. It could be 7 different agents at ABC brokerage, right? So I'm trying to see, is there an agent that's dominating this neighborhood or this geographic area, right? So if it's more than 20%, I may go, they can have it. I'll go to another subdivision and be the sleeping giant, right? So I think a lot of Sometimes we need to just do more research, run the numbers, and be able to have a strategy going forward. Couple tips as we go through. So once you find the neighborhood that you think is the sweet spot with your turn rate, there's no gorillas, you feel like the quantity or the size is appropriate for your return on investment. The first thing is right when you start your farm, you need to smack it right in the forehead. You need to go aggressive the first month. We call it the 3-2-1 approach, right? So you need to do 3 touches in the first month, right? So if you can do postcards, if you can do an intro letter, which is slightly more personal, if you can do a call or door knocking, anything to really smack, to really wake up that neighborhood to say, hey, I'm here and I'm here to serve, I'm here to provide value. Then month 2 would go to 2 marketing touches. And then month 3, it would get on that once a month consistent touch, right? So we want to jolt, we want to put some energy in your farm. If you just do once a month postcards, it's going to take you a lot longer to get what we call that kind of RAS or reticular activator in their brain to like wake up, right? They get mail from realtors already. They already see postcards just listed, just sold, right? You want to stand out. You're going to use the 3-2-1 approach in your farming. And be strategic. Go after it in an aggressive way. Um, and I'm not saying it's a silver bullet. I'm not saying that you're going to instantly get a listing, yet it is going to let them be aware of your marketing efforts, and they're going to notice it much more assertiveness. Okay. I'm all for direct mail. And I know people sometimes like, oh, direct mail is dead. That is not true. High data, if you look at NAR statistics, sellers are an older demographic. Typically, the average seller is 56 to like in their early 60s. That is a generation that likes to feel and touch paper, right? They are less of a digital era, right? Buyers have a tendency to be a little younger, and they are a little bit more in the digital space. So if you're doing farming, it's generally a seller-based activity. It generally is a little bit older demographic, and that's okay. I have had many, many, many listing appointments where I saw my flyer or my postcard with a magnet on the refrigerator, right? From like 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, right? So the key thing is I want to make sure anything that you deliver by mail, direct mail, like drop off, door knock, it needs to be sticky. If you've ever coached with me or heard of training before, I am like a fanatic about this, right? I see so many beautiful, beautiful real estate pieces of marketing, but it really is not worth anything because after I look at it for 10 to 12 seconds, I throw it away, right? Market updates, they sound great, but that's not sticky, right? Because the minute that you print that and mail that 7 to 10, let's say 20 days later, that data is old. It's not relevant, right? So sticky is things that they're going to keep, right? So think about local events, anything that you can do. It kind of reminds me of the old school, like if some senior agents in the office like or in this session, like the old school recipe cards that agents used to do. Why did real estate agents send a recipe card to a neighborhood? They're not cooks, they're not chefs, they're not in the food industry. They did it because they knew they would keep the recipe card, and on the other side they would have their go-to realtor's contact information, right? So I just want us to remember that we still have to go to that original OG concept of like it has to be sticky, right? So if you are using templates through Canva or anything you see online, most of the time none of that stuff has anything sticky. It's just the generic plug and play statistics data. So you got to go in there, possibly do a vendor, add a vendor. I have one person that I love. She does almost religiously. She'll connect with, she has a mobile car detailing service guy that's in her database, past client, and she puts a little coupon code and then, $25 off, and use this coupon code, right? So anything you can do to make it sticky, okay? The other thing is that when we are branding or marketing ourselves consistently to a farm, stop moving things around, right? So think of it like a commercial on the television or an old school newspaper ad or anything that maybe a magazine that you get right now. They don't move the title or the header, right? They don't move the core things about it, right? Because a lot of times people are only seeing this for a flash second, and we need to build that branding awareness. So keep your branding consistent, add something sticky. This is just a generic flyer. but you could use the same approach in a postcard approach. Highlight brokerage success. I always say nobody likes to go to a slow restaurant, right? So show some success, show some things that are going on. If you personally aren't having success in that neighborhood, grab some from your brokerage, show the momentum. Obviously, show local real estate stats. And the other thing is make sure that it's easy for them to contact you. Yes, in a perfect world, they take this flyer, they pull out their phone, and they type in your phone number. But we know that the easy button is here. And so I would recommend using like a QR code to actually scan and actually go to your calendar, like book an appointment with you. Make it anything you can to make it easier for them. So don't even just think the phone number or the email is going to work because they've not looking at long enough to save it in their phone or contact. Okay. People always say, well, when you're doing neighborhood farms, like what's the best place to print stuff? First of all, EDDM, Every Door Direct, is by far the easiest process, right? So you literally Google EDM direct mail. It's through the postal services. We also have some side vendors that kind of use it as an opportunity to help you as well. So you can do it either way. But EDDM is, we all get it every day. If you go to your mailbox today, you might get something from, a window company or a siding company or a roofer or, things like that, right? So the good thing about EDDM is that when you log into EDDM.com, that's literally what it is, it gives you a map. You can start with an address and you can kind of do a geographical farm, right? You can do an area. It already grabs all those names and addresses of the residents that live there, right? Then it's got a place for you to upload your postcard, your flyer, whatever you want to mail. So the good thing is it's all electronic. There's no paper, there's no stamps, there's no fuss, right? So you're going to select your geographic area. It's going to grab all those addresses. You're going to upload your document, which is your flyer or your postcard, and then it's going to do all the work. It's going to stamp and print it out for you, and it's going to go out, right? So that's probably the most logical, like the most affordable, less frustration. There's also Postcards Plus. I have a lot of people that use those. Again, if you see on the upper left-hand side of my screen, it has an EDDM option. So Postcard Plus, you can build them out either using their templates or upload your own, things like that. I also included a company called Wise Pelican. This is kind of an interesting, but I love the approach, is they actually do 12 postcards for you already in advance. So they work with you to build 12 postcards, one a month, and they interject local stuff. They put some seasonality in there, but you already know what all 12 postcards are going to be, right? So the one in the fall is going to look a little bit like that, right? And then the winter one's going to look more holiday-like. It's going to have calls to action. They do a good job of like creating QR codes that actually capture information, such as if they scan that. So the general, I'm not here to promote any of these. I just want you to know that one of the things about farming is consistency. And sometimes in our creative brains, we think, oh, we need to create all this fun stuff. And it's the cog in the wheel. It kind of trips us up. So if EDDM or one of these postcard services can allow you to kind of be more effective, I definitely would lean in and coach you to use those. Okay. All right. So that kind of ends what I would say the kind of the traditional farming. Obviously, budget is important, so I put this slide in here. I always tell any agent that wants to farm is you're going to have that in a separate bank account, right? And I am not your accountant, but I do know from personal experiences, we get a closing, we say we're going to start farming, and then about 3 months in, we have to use that money for other stuff, right? So set up a secondary account, put like, any amount of money you can keep putting in there, 10%, $500 until it gets to that reserve. So in this example, I need about $2,600, $2,700 in a marketing fund. And I would use that to farm my area. The beautiful thing is obviously once you get your first sale, you're going to replenish that and you're going to keep that cycle going. So I would say your marketing dollars, this reserve fund needs to be the holy grail. You can't touch it because what happens, if we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, that's when the breakdown of our investment in our farming stops. Okay. Also, some additional sources or some additional touch options. If you're doing the direct mail, print, postage, all that, I'm a big fan of accessing free stuff, right? So emails are free and I think they're effective. So you could take that same postcard or that same flyer or that same information that you're providing in a direct mail format, and you can grab their email address. There's lots of services out there. I personally love a product called Mojo, mojosells.com. It's a quick, it's like $50. You can do it monthly. After you grab what you need from 1 month, you don't have to renew it. It's not a contract. So you just log into Mojo Sells. You use the neighborhood search. Has a very similar like mapping feature like MLS and tax records does, and it'll pull the list you can see on the screen here. It has phone numbers, it has addresses, and it has email addresses. Doesn't have email addresses for everyone. And I would say it's around 75% accurate. Most of this information is pulled through Census Bureau, and we know that that's not always 100% updated. So you will get some kickback emails that say, no, this isn't available. And if you do use the phone numbers, it's scrubbed through you not do not call list, so you know that you're protected that way. So you could text or call those and have a call to action with the farm. I really highly encourage multiple touches. Remember when I said the 3-2-1 approach? Postcards one, maybe a different type of a letter later, or an email would be a different touch, and a text or a call, right? So if you're trying to really, be effective in your farm and really introduce them to yourself, you to them, this might be a good way. And last but not least is probably my slick, fun, least aggressive approach is called Sly Broadcast. So Sly Broadcast, basically, it's a system that you create a voicemail and it goes to the person's phone. The phone does not ring, and it leaves a voicemail, and it shows up as a missed call. So the reason why it's called Sly, it's kind of a little slick, but it's really effective. So I take the Mojo cell. So I actually take this information, the phone numbers. It only wants phone numbers. It doesn't want names or addresses, and I upload it into the software. And so I would maybe do a voicemail that says something like, "Hey, I'm Drew, your local realtor in the neighborhood of XYZ. I just wanted to reach out and let you know I just had sent in the mail a postcard. I'm running a little bit of a promotion on listing appointments right now. So if you do a listing appointment with me, I can put $250 towards like a home improvement credit, such as power washing, cleaning the carpets. So I just want to reach out to you and let you know that that's coming in your mailbox. And if you want to reach out to me direct call XYZ number, right? So you pre-record the message, you upload the recipients, you schedule the voicemails, it goes out. What typically happens is they call you back and they literally say, "Hey, I missed a call from you. Who is this?" You say the script in real time, or they listen to your voicemail and they make a decision whether they're going to do something or not, right? So if you want to use that, I feel like I'm a salesperson for them, but like there's a refer a friend code on the bottom left. I'll send this in the email. You get 100 free credits, and they're really cheap. Like I put $20 in, they're like 10 cents a voicemail. It's nothing crazy. So it's cool thing is if you try it, and how you like it. I have people using Sly Broadcast to remind people of their client events or remind people of open houses. So this might be something you can use universally in your business called Sly Broadcast. Okay. And then don't forget about the neighborhoods that intersect with the schools. So yes, you're going to farm a neighborhood or geographical area, but make sure you're doing your research as to the feeder schools that are connected to that, right? Because we're trying to get mind share. We're trying to really maximize and squeeze all the juice out of it, right? So they're getting the 3-2-1 action in the neighborhood, in their mailbox, and their voicemail, and their email. And then they come to, let's say, a farmer's market or a soccer game, and they see you there with your logo and your information. That is just additional sources of reminders that you're there to provide value. I'll tell you, every quarter, I loved on our school neighborhoods with like bagels and fruit and things like that. Constantly wanted them to know, because I know that the middle school, high school, when they get off the bus, they're going straight to the doors of the neighborhoods that I just mailed a postcard to. Right. So as much as you can do to cross pollinate, it's super important, because a postcard is not a farm, right? It's those additional touches. And they kind of, I feel like they really do, like I was joking, like they smell a rat, meaning if you just send a postcard, you just want money, right? But if you're contributing to the neighborhood, you're trying to do food drives or different things to sponsor school events, and they see all of that culmination of your efforts, they know you're in it for the long term. You're not in it just for the transaction, right? So make sure if you're doing neighborhood or geographical farming, these are pieces and parts that you need to really think through strategically. Okay. The next one is probably, it's funny, I think it's the hardest one for us as realtors. So the number one thing I ask realtors is, what are your hobbies? And when I'm in a live training in an office or I'm talking to one of my clients, they kind of get this deer in headlights look. And they said, well, I had hobbies or I had a life before real estate, right? I used to play tennis or I used to, ride horses, but because I got into real estate, my hobbies went out the window. And so one of the things I want you to kind of challenge yourself if you're going to farm a social circle is you got to be in the room, right? You got to hang out with those people again. And I know we put our heads down, kind of deer in headlights, or like we really try to focus building a business, but we got to be careful. So interesting. Um, I noticed that a lot of the top producers, I've been doing this 20 years, but coaching 10, I coach some pretty high producers. I ask them all the time, like, do you like talking to people? And if we're secretly, confidentially talking, they all pretty much confess they don't, right? They're more introverted than they are extroverted. And so I am exactly the same way. And many of you on this session maybe are feeling that way too. Like I have to force myself to talk to humans, right? It's funny, I'm in the people business, and yet I prefer to be home with my puppies and watching Netflix, right? So there is a hybrid, or it's called an ambivert. And when I discovered this, I'm like, oh my God, this is what I am, right? So ambivert is a person who shows characteristics of both the extrovert and introvert. In other words, we fall somewhere in between, right? And so most of us actually have to be an ambivert because we know that's how we gain business, right? So we got to turn it on and make it happen. Go to those networking events, go to those community events, do all the things we got to do with our SOI, sphere of influence. And then personally, I'm exhausted. I come home and I need to take a nap, right? And so if you're one of those people that it kind of falls in this ambivert or this introvert, this section is for you because you got to really be really strategic with farming your circle, okay? And so I call it the 5 bubbles. It's not 2 bubbles, it's not 10 bubbles, it's 5. And I really have come across this for years and years because I personally know that there's only so much time in the day and there's so much overlap. So the first thing I would coach you to do is figure out what you can do to hang out with more people, right? I love this quote. It's like you got to start hanging out with people who fit your future, not your history, right? So I have a client right now. She's like, "Hey, I want to raise my price point. How do I do it? Do I call? Do I send postcards?" I said, you know what you got to do? You got to start hanging out with people that have a different economic status, right? And it's just the fact of life. People that have a different brackets of income hang out with the same income brackets, right? So this is examples on the screen of maximizing this. Running. I'm not in no way saying you should run by yourself. What I'm saying is that you probably need to get a running crew together. So if running is your jam, if you love it, if that brings you joy, then you need to get 4 to 5 people on a running team. And I say team, but you meet every Wednesday at 7 a.m., right, at the river, and you're running together. That community or that bubble will produce. I have another client. She walks her dog. She's got 2 of those, I call them these huge, what, Labradoodles, these big dogs. And she was walking by herself, and we're like, hey, we got to make this a bubble. What do we do? So what does she do? She puts out on her neighborhood Facebook group that she wants to start a dog walking kind of accountability group. And now she's got like 5 or 6 ladies that walk their dogs together. And what's happening as they're talking over the months and the weeks and the time together? She doesn't even bring up real estate in the sense of like talking about it, but they're peppering her with, how's the real estate market? Oh, did you hear Susie's selling her house? Or, oh, this person, the gossip, right? She's getting all the drama in the neighborhood just from that dog walking group. Has already gotten like 2 or 3 referrals. Game night. I have one. I'll show you an example. The craft beer. I have a gentleman that he loves craft beer, and he's in the Richmond, Virginia market. And Richmond is kind of known for that craft beer space. And so very intentionally creating these craft beer groups. Every month they go to a different brewery. He provides 4 to 6 people, and it really is helpful. Things like that. Okay. So I want you to really stretch yourself. What are your bubbles? And are you maximizing them? And are they a solo mission and you can make it into a team or a group effort? Okay. Different things like that. So I want you to think about your hobbies, anything fun that you've got going on, and see if there's a way to connect that. So this is an example. Brandon, one of my coaching clients, that's what he connects. So he literally does those beer connections like every month. He also sent like this card in the summer, and he did some of these cool like bottle openers. So what he's doing is cross-pollinating. Again, farming is a targeted approach, and you're cross-pollinating your marketing, right? So he's hanging out with his buddies at a craft beer place every single month, and then he's sending a personal note with something fun that's beer related, and it's so he's not talking shop or talking real estate necessarily at the event, but then they're getting something in the mail afterwards that's, hey, thanks for coming, good to see you, all that stuff. And it's branding his company, and it's branding him as a realtor. So it doesn't have to be yucky, it doesn't have to be sleazy. I don't need you to go into these bubbles and be a used car salesman approach, but I do want you to cross pollinate. And you probably have heard this maybe from a session I've done before, but I'm going to slide it in as many times as I can. We are seeing high effectiveness of using your social circles for micro events, right? So micro events are not these big client events that you probably see trending for real estate agents or teams or brokerages. They're super small. It's the old school of breaking bread with 6 people at 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 a restaurant, right? I definitely don't want it to have fancy invites. I just want you to show up and enjoy the experience. I don't want you to be schlepping the decorations and putting out food. So I want you to have that. And I literally have had so many testimonials of agents doing this, right? So they're into plants. So they go to plant house. They're doing candles. They're axe throwing. It's simple. It's just a text message says, hey, we're gonna do a candle making event next Thursday, so you don't need that much lag time. They'll either know that they can come or they can't. So you don't need to draw this out for 3 weeks, right? So do maybe a week to 10 days ahead, and just say I'm getting some of my friends and past clients together to make some candles. There's going to be only 10 of us or 6 of us, and I thought of you, and I think that you'd have a lot of fun. Just text me back if you can go. It's going to be this time, this day, this location, right? Keep it simple. Doesn't is very informal, but I'm going to tell you the funniest thing is like doing these micro events. Number one, you can control costs because you have a fixed number of people. It's smaller. Usually, almost to the dollar how much is being spent ahead of time. And it's also you build more relationships. If you've ever been to a client event or let's say a busy open house, you don't even get to talk to people because you're so busy like being the host and like coordinating things, right? So micro events, especially when you're farming a circle of humans and your database, is a really effective way to do it. And so I've seen just in the last, somebody did a Valentine's, they did their Galentine event. They did like a dinner at their house. Huge success. Got a couple referrals from it, worked out. Actually, they're already under contract with one. Okay. The other last thing on this part is don't be a secret agent, right? If you're going to the gym, you need to wear a t-shirt that says you're a realtor. If you're going to go out and just run some errands around town, throw a ball cap on, right? It doesn't have to be obnoxious, but there's a lot of cute stuff out there for men and women. There's all kinds of different things out there. So Google it, right? So Etsy's got some good stuff, $12 t-shirts, right? Hats, 10, 12, 15, 20 bucks, right? I don't want you to be a secret agent, right? And I know that many of us kind of have the traditional like name badge thing. If that's your vibe, go for it. But if you're out and about in your local community, and we're kind of again targeting, if that's your tribe and your community, make sure they know that you're a realtor, right? It's so crazy when I had a client do this, goes to the gym every day, and he's like, oh my God, just this t-shirt alone, people come up to me while I'm filling up my water bottle. I'm like, oh, I didn't know you're a realtor. How's the market? Right. So get rid of your Nike t-shirt and throw on a realtor t-shirt. It makes a difference. And you don't subconsciously don't even know you're even marketing yourself and putting yourself out there. Okay. So the last one of the farm, and I think this is one you probably have been to 100 different social media classes I have. And social media is always changing, right? So social media is just, it's funny. Like I'm an old guy in the business, I guess, but 20 years we didn't have social media. And now it's like a full-time job. I feel like all we need to do, all we have to have like a video or like photos of us all the time. I feel like we're some like Kardashian or something. And that's not necessarily 100% accurate. I think the key is that we have to be a local expert. So these are some things I want you to kind of consider to maybe tweak or to modify some of your content. It's not about going viral. So let's stop going trying to go viral. Instead, be intentional about going local, right? So if I'm auditing, which I do, I audit my coaching clients' social media. We kind of grade and review. And none of it's bad, but could we do it better? Could we squeeze some more juice out of our social media? So I would challenge you to kind of audit your social media and see what kind of content you're putting out there. Is there any local flair to it at all? Or is it just general information about real estate? If it's the 5 tips to buy or sell, no offense, every realtor is doing that, right? But how can you take those tips and twist it to a local situation? That's where it's targeted farming. That's where it's targeted digital marketing, right? So it's going after a segment, a targeted group on your social media feeds. So rather than thinking about social media as like going viral or this wide group of humans, it's actually better and more effective to go narrow and go more targeted. Okay. So first thing I would say this, I kind of blocked out some of this, but the one on the left here, I coach someone in the Fredericksburg, Virginia market. They have a closed Facebook group called We Love Fredericksburg, and they do local stuff. They've partnered with different vendors. And if you go on this page, and you guys probably have those in your local markets too, it's all about the community. It's not about the realtor. It's not about the mortgage person. It's not about anybody. It's lifting up and promoting local businesses, right? And why can't you do that? You're already going out to dinner anyway. Why not get a shout out to do that, right? So the first thing I would coach you to do is go into these private closed Facebook groups, right? Not the public facing ones, not you just giving a shout out to your local restaurant, but what are you a member of these closed Facebook groups, neighborhood groups, local jurisdictions, counties, state, there's all kinds of them. There's thousands of Facebook groups. Make sure you have a list of them and make sure you're actually strategically going into them on a consistent basis. So think of this digital farm just like a postcard. Remember, we did the 3-2-1 on the actual farm itself for a neighborhood. You would do the same concept of the social media digital farm, right? Insert yourself, provide value. I would not solicit business. I would be neutral to community discussions. I would really be a resource, but maybe you could tap into those neighborhood groups a little bit more, those closed Facebook groups. So I challenge you to go and find them and then write them down or have them in a Google document so you can say, hey, I posted in all 6 of these today, or I interacted with 5 of these, or I added a vendor recommendation to 7 of these, right? So the more you insert yourself and be the neighborhood or the local resource, it's gonna put you on the map. Okay. We're gonna transition to what we call Facebook ads, but I want to give what my version of clarity is. I'm in no way like social media expert, but I will tell you with the experts I do work with and the vendors that are in the business of social media marketing, this is kind of the 3 phases of what marketing now is. It's a pay to play space. You probably know this, right? So if I post something today, it's going to go to my friends and my followers, right? That's free. I can post all day long, and I totally get the consistency of it. I get that you want to build a brand. I get you want it to look a certain way. You want to blend personal and professional posts in there, but it's only going to go to your people, right? And so farming is you want to have a targeted group, right? You want to widen your audience. So the secondary option, so after post is boost, right? So a boost really gives a little bit of a bump. That's why it's called boost, right? It takes it out of your circle of friends and it kind of goes to their friends' friends, right? So I'm friends with Susie and now Susie's friend is going to see it, right? So a boost, good stuff. Doesn't hurt to do that. You can see on the screen on the right hand side, a boost has like 3 or 4 things that you can kind of demographically target, right? Then you go to what I really truly is a pay to play. Is Facebook ads, Instagram ads. You'll see on the left hand side in blue, this is all the things you can do to modify and create that target audience. This is just like a postcard or a flyer or an open house, it's a targeted demographic, right? You're going after people that want to buy, want to sell, right? So different things like that. So I wanted to show you a screenshot kind of that. So when you're going into your Facebook, Instagram thing, you're going to go just into the meta, like it's the back end of your system. You're just going to see, so I did a screenshot of mine. This is not on your personal account, so it's going to be on some like business page, right? And so I have a couple different business pages. So if you're finding you can't really see it on your personal page, I don't believe. I think you have to. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's just business. So you're gonna pop open your business page, and you're gonna see this Ads Manager tab. You're just gonna pop it open, and that's where you're gonna make a decision on like figuring out the demographic you're gonna go after, right? And so this is just a real quick screenshot of like options. And how did I find this? I used ChatGPT and I said, hey, how do I target a certain group of people based on this criteria? And so it literally was like, here's geofarming, the location. Here's I can search by interest, behaviors, lifestyle, and demographics. All those are like little tabs that you can toggle through and say, when I create this ad, like I have a post, now I'm going to target it to these one, two, three, five, six different things, right? I'm going to go by location, interest, behavior, life events, or demographic, right? So again, rather than throwing all the spaghetti on the wall and just hoping it sticks and just saying, oh, I created a cute post, I'm now going to be really strategic and farm and be targeted with paid ads, right? And when I say paid ads, I'm not spending thousands of dollars. In fact, I have one coaching client, she was like, oh, I'm going to spend $200 a month. And honestly, it's hard for her to spend $200 a month, right? So 25 bucks, $50, $100. Get your feet wet, see how it goes. It'll get more effective as you use it. But it is a pay to play space. And I think that's just the world we're in, and it's not going to go anywhere, right? So the last section of this, before we hop off, where we at? We're at 47. Got enough time to finish strong. Is I want you to really start to think about how you post or what you post strategically on your social media. So this is the 5 reasons of why people search by neighborhoods or zip code. I see all the time that we're talking very general about the market. We're talking about Richmond or Fredericksburg or Maryland, or like it's super generic, right? You and I know that the neighborhood that you live in across the street, that neighborhood is very different than yours, right? Different demographic, different income level, different square footage, right? So the beautiful thing about all the neighborhoods and all the towns I've ever lived in is we kind of have these fun little niche areas. And so my most familiar space is probably the Richmond, Virginia market. And you give example, you have like the Fan, you have Museum District, we have West End. These are like the local kind of like language, right? So you can't necessarily say that it's the neighborhood, it's the zip code, but we know what we're getting, right? When I go into Carytown in Richmond, I know the vibe and the feel of that, right? So the first thing I'm not going to read all this. I'll send it to you. But buyers search by neighborhood zip codes the most. Number one, it's a lifestyle fit. They know what they are getting, right? They know the schools that are connected with those neighborhoods. Relocation, they have familiarity with it. Price range, they kind of know where the up and coming neighborhood is, or they know the high end neighborhood is, or they know the rental friendly neighborhood. But the last thing is that that's all MLS and portal searches push towards that, right? Every portal is connected to a zip code, a neighborhood, or a search area. So when we're posting on social media, we got to really lean into that. And so I would challenge you, when you're farming on digital spaces, be more selective, right? So I'm going to give you a couple examples. We all do these market updates. In fact, I'm guilty of like giving them to you guys, right? So it's got, oh, the market update for the whole freaking, 600-mile radius, right? What if you change that and went to very specific snapshots? Churchill, the Fan, like your little fun little neighborhoods in your market, and really break those down. So maybe you're posting 3 or 4 of the top neighborhoods, right? And I know as an agent you might have a limiting belief. You're like, but what about I'm excluding this neighborhood, or what if I'm not talking about that, right? The thing is that you have to be the expert at something. Think about Chick-fil-A. They sell burgers? No, right? They sell chicken, right? That's their thing, right? And so you being the local expert and knowing those markets so well, buyers and sellers are going to be attracted to your expertise and your sharpness to that. So I went on ChatGPT, said, hey, give me some local information on geo farming for social media. It popped out, hey, spring market report. It gave me even a little script on things I can post on there, and it even generated this Churchill snapshot. So anyway, I'll have a separate class on AI stuff, but like we don't even have to think of it anymore, y'all. We can use the resources and technology to become the local expert if we're not yet the expert. All right. The last thing is I want you to make sure everything needs to be redirected to something, right? So one of the things that when we're doing these social media posts, it dies essentially in 24 hours. If you put that on a story, you put that on a reel, it goes away, right? And the problem with that is that you can't capture anything. They don't see any additional information. It's like there's no breadcrumbs. I call it like you have to kind of sprinkle some crumbs to kind of get them to kind of go where you want them to go. Again, it's a targeted approach. It's strategic, right? So one of the things is you have to redirect them to something that of additional value. So think of it like the postcard scenario in the farming where I was saying it's sticky, right? This is the sticky version of the digital space, right? So first thing is most brokerages, I say most, some brokerages have what they call an IDX feed. And I'm not, again, a expert on technology with this, but I do know at IDX, it's a feed that gives permission through your local MLS to allow you to have all the listings flow through your website. So I've grabbed a couple screenshots of different people. There's a couple there. You see these pretty common. If you go to any MLS listing at the bottom, they either have a search criteria or things like this. First thing is I love the way that both of these examples actually subset them out. They actually take the fun, maybe neighborhoods that are kind of the locals call it that, but it's not on a map and it's not Google worthy, right? So the Seventh Ward, you know, what is it called? Algiers Point, different things in New Orleans. So this particular agent, I'm obsessed with her website because she's all about local, right? And so she's targeting social media ads that go right to her IDX feed in her website. And then this is example, all these websites are the same. So none of this is proprietary. Every brokerage can have this. Once you click on one of these little cards, it'll pop up the neighborhood and it'll say search these homes. That link goes directly to MLS, and that's where the IDX feed goes in. When you're looking at people searching, they want to search homes. That's what they want to see, right? They love your cute memes, they love your content, but at the end of the day, if they're a serious buyer or serious seller, they want to research the market. They want to see what their money is going to get them, right? So one of the things I would say is make sure you're redirecting your social media posts. So if I'm going to do a cute post about a local neighborhood or about local data, I'm going to say, for a specific, search on Tarrington, click here, and I'm going to go into that. I'm going to give you an example now if you don't have an IDX feed, right? So some brokerages don't. That's their choice. It's not a big deal, but if you don't have it, you can do something for free, and I want you to kind of capitalize on this. So there is Google. If you have a Gmail account, you have a website option. You can have what we call a landing page of these sites. So I'll send this link to you, and I literally did like a 10-minute mock-up to kind of see, is it super hard? Is it easy? I'm not super tech savvy. If I can do it, you can do it. So I literally went to sites.google.com, and it gave me like all these templates. I'm going to show you what it looks like real quick, and I literally start to customize it, right? So that's the first thing is if you want to create landing pages, would be great. You could do landing pages for things that are not even geographical, right? Like neighborhoods. What if you did a landing page if you speak, let's say fluent Spanish? What if you did a separate website or landing page just for Spanish speaking individuals and you can set up links for that? What if you're equestrian and you're into that space, right? So you can kind of make it fun. These landing sites are free and it's a redirect to use through social media. So I'm going to show you one real quick. Oh, once you create it, it lives in your Google Drive, right? So let me just show you one real quick. So this one, I grabbed the template. None of it's 100% correct because I didn't want to spend much time on it, but I grabbed the template, Carytown. It's in kind of the Richmond, Virginia market. I just started to change this stuff to make it look good. I grabbed an image of that. I can change this. This is 100% correctly changed. I start to do this, and then I'm gonna do call to actions or capture things, right? So I did stuff about Carytown. I did a website, redirect to a website that already existed, giving them some exposure, which is nothing bad. Then I would connect this. This is recent solds in Carytown, and this is recent searches for sale in Carytown, right? So I'm doing this. I just want you to think about no excuses, no reason why you can't do it. If you don't have the IDX feed, you can make this. It's super easy to do, and it's free. And like I said, if you go into, once you create one, it lives in your drive. And so I will, oh, let me see if I can click on this. So this is my Google Drive once it pops up. And all I do is just the type. There's actually sites down here. And all of your little landing pages will show up here. So it's on Google Drive under sites. Because you got all these other folders and all the things you probably already use, but there's different websites. So you have no excuse or no reason why you can't redirect using social media. Make it super local, make it super fun. I definitely think you can cross-pollinate this and use this for digital, okay? And really, we talked about this before, it's all about the cross-pollination, okay? That's pretty much everything. I do want to give you a little sales pitch. We do have a free training next month. Just like this one, we have one every single month. So the one in May is on the 15th. So if you want to scan the QR code, that's a separate Zoom RSVP. So if you registered for today, you won't necessarily get this one, because I don't want to spam you to death. But this is attracting referrals. We say people work by referral, but referrals is such a generic name and caveat. We're breaking down 6 types of referrals, really strategic ways that you can go after the referral business, not just the generic SOI past clients. So if you want to join me next month for a free one, I'd appreciate you coming to that. And just like all our free trainings, if you can't show up, we'll send you the recording and the content after the session. So if you're on a listing appointment, you still can enjoy the content later at your pace. If you are a real estate office, broker, trainer, and if you want us to come and help complement maybe your office, brokerage, or group, we have some new stuff for 2025. We have 5 different trainings. The most recent one is an AI training. I've had a lot of fun building this one. It's an hour and a half of using AI and some tools I think agents really underutilize. Impact training is a great one. Branding, personal branding, and then Thrive, and then leadership. So those are kind of our newest ones. And then training is never replaced with coaching. A lot of what I talk about today, we slow down and break apart in coaching, specifically with you one-on-one. It's affordable. $295 a month is our base. It's called our Flex program. So you get 2 sessions a month with me, and we break down either your farming, your geographic farming, your social farming, or your digital farming. We kind of make that happen. If you have additional businesses, maybe a little side hustle business, we also can help you with multiple businesses. It doesn't have to be just real estate coaching. So scan that, and that gives you access to my Zoom schedule, and we can kind of have a little chat. And if you're like kind of local in my space, I'd even love to grab a cup of coffee and just talk about it. So that's everything. So if you could take a moment, if you have your phone out, since I have those QR codes up, I'd love for you to scan this and tell me anything good that you learned from it. But like I said, today you will get, within the hour, I'll send you all of this content, all of these links, so you can play around with it and go after farming. It's a $100,000 business every day of the week if you're strategic and you're really working the numbers and you lead gen to a targeted space. Okay, so that's everything for today. Thank you for joining me. Happy Thursday, and look forward to the weekend. And I'll talk to you soon.